Okay, we are live. So welcome to this week's e-NABLE Town Hall. We're just getting started here. Still probably waiting on one or two more, but we'll go ahead and get into our action items and such just to get going in case anyone's watching. Ben, are you able to help the notes today?
Yep, I can do that.
Share my screen. Okay. All right, so let's see. Action items. Ben, follow up on the finish event. Was that, I don't remember what that was. Was that just to clarify the time?
Yeah, and it was to see if Alexander and Masby were able to join, and it looks like that all went through. I'm
Oh.
not 100% positive. It was yesterday,
Okay.
something like 4 in the morning my time, but as far as I know, it all went through. Thierry had a presentation. I think Alexander wasn't sure if he'd be able to present, but hopefully they'll join today and give us an update.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm going to cross that one off for you. John and Ben reached out to the three.
It might be worth adding an Alexander or Masby update on that, because I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, they needed help connecting the dots. Oh, right. I got the notes right in front of me.
Okay, great. John and Ben reached out to the 3 chapters in Northern California about those printers that were available.
Yep.
Any takers?
No response yet. Evan did say that he could potentially help coordinate, but he's in Pennsylvania right now. So my sense is that we'll wait another couple of days and then just widen the scope. If there's something like 8 or 12 chapters in LA, we could reach out to them. That's 6 hours away from Auburn, California, but
got it. Okay, next one is for me to set up a spreadsheet to just kind of try to manage and detail out these lists of champion needs. So I did get started on that. I need a little bit more time to finish it up. I got to come up with a shorter kind of title for each one. We've got our description. And as far as kind of defining the scale, I was thinking just like small, medium, large, or ongoing. Does that make sense?
Nice.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll just finish filling this in and then send it your way, Ben, and you can kind of help me to add more detail, requirements, skill sets, things like that maybe we're missing. But that's a good start. And speaking of which, Bob did help me put together that one detailed description for the needs analysis. So we have a draft of that I did go through, but I wanted to make some edits. So he just gave me edit access, right? So I need a little more time on that too. But let's see, the next one is the going live with the new design on the device catalog pages, which is still waiting on me, unfortunately. And as I said last time, I just, being realistic, don't know when I'm going to get to that, because it does take a sort of a chunk of time being set aside. Not huge, but one that I haven't been able to do. So I had suggested that maybe that would be a candidate for something that we could put a sort of a task bounty on and see if somebody might take it on then. But I think we should think of it not just in terms of going live with the new design, but finding somebody that can take the lead on maintaining that device catalog going forward. Because already this week, one of the posts that we'll look at that was, that got attention this week was from Peter Binkley saying, hey, there's this great design, it's not in our catalog. We really need somebody that can kind of see those, grab them, take the lead on, getting the details and getting those added into the catalog. And I just don't have time for it. So something for our list of needs. Bob, who's not able to join us today, was working on, this is the one I mentioned. So he did write up the sort of the job description or the detailed write up of what we're looking for there. I don't remember if I have it up here. No, that's not it. I think I have it in one of my other browser windows, but he wrote up about a 1-page description of what we're looking for, the nature of the work, the kinds of skill sets we're looking for, et cetera. Really nice job. I just wanted to make a few tweaks on a couple of the bits of wording, and that'll be ready to go. So that will go up as a Lumio discussion thread, both to sort of vet the idea of sort of the task bounty approach, as well as to hopefully get some attention from people that might want to help with this. So that's a work in progress. Bob, help desk FlashForge partnership. I know there has been additional communication back and forth on that. I'm not.
Jeremy, you froze. on my end anyways.
Yeah, me too.
Interesting.
You're back.
I am back.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that was. My internet connection. Oh, yep. It says my internet connection is unstable. That hasn't happened for a while. All right. Do you guys know anything about the FlashForge communications?
We've been going back and forth with Kyle,
Yeah.
but we have not actually met up with him yet.
Okay. So we'll just leave that one there for a while. John and Ben working following up with schools. What internships? Any news?
We did have a meeting about that this week. There was some issues with the handshake account. There was a couple details that were needed to be updated in the profile. So that was updated and we followed up with Marymount University. But
Okay.
Small steps.
Good. Ben, update event summary for March.
Yes. So if you look at the forum and go to the wiki, you'll see in the side that there is now, if you scroll down, community events, which has them in there. So if you click on March.
Oh, so there's a print schedule and then publish page and publish Google Doc. Okay.
Yeah, so I usually make a Google Doc to plan it out, and I figured it'd be worthwhile to share.
Okay, nice. Well, thanks for doing that. We'll come back to that in a minute when we go through events. Let's see, and then we got some that'll take some time here. Alexander working on capturing some frequently asked questions, and Ben working on an updated chapter spotlight for Rich Brown chapter in Florida. Okay. Metrics, nothing really jumped out at me today. Our e-NABLE fund is still right about the same, although it's crept up a few dollars. Nothing really caught my attention otherwise, so on we go. Posts of note for the week. I alluded to this one before. Peter Binkley shared a post about the Roadrunner bike device, which he pointed out is not in our catalog and has proved to be successful. This is the kind of thing I would love to have somebody to help with, just, when this kind of thing comes up, either we could try to encourage Peter to fill out our form to submit a new device, or knowing that might, he might not have time to do that. Really, it's probably more a matter of, going to Thingiverse, getting the details ourselves, putting that page together and maybe running it by him for review, but need somebody to help with that. So this is a very interesting looking device, so we should get that in our catalog. John pointed out a recommended website that continues to develop, Bionics for Everyone. And he has a complete guide to bionic arms and hands. Wow. I didn't actually get to look at this. That's pretty cool.
We should have him as a guest. We're probably going to buy as the featured guest in a bionic session, if that's the
Who's that? Wayne Williams?
Wayne, yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's very active on LinkedIn and he keeps on pulling these things together. So
you're just beautiful.
Really. Why don't I reach out to him for May? We've got Skip and John are hosting the Bionics April session. But we don't have anybody scheduled for May yet.
Yeah, I mean, those look amazing. Okay. All right, and then not sure how to pronounce this. Hakon Lee's working on a new hand design. They've produced a questionnaire for patients and they're asking for some help getting that filled out. Alexander suggested that they might want to add a question more specifically asking about the kinds of things people want to be able to do with their device. Along with some other suggestions here. Also call them users. Patients implies medical industry, which we're not quite part of. Okay, so just take a peek at that. It's basically, it's the kind of thing actually that we talked about a while ago that I would like to switch over to instead, excuse me. We don't really know which way we're going with the whole matching platform until we do this analysis, but say we decide to stick with something like e-NABLE Web Central, instead of having people fill out, all the information we're asking for now, I like the idea of, you want a hand, just fill out a form like this, how old are you, gender, are you currently a prosthetic user, have you got one before, what did you like or dislike about it, would you rather stand out or blend in, I like that one, asks about hobbies and everyday tasks that you struggle with most. So, maybe we can add 1 or 2 questions there, but I like the idea of just giving somebody a simple form, they fill it out, and then we kind of take it from there. We set up the case for them. We kind of facilitate matching. We, kind of handhold a little bit instead of being completely self-service. We've talked about that before, but this seemed like a nice example of the kind of thing I was thinking about to get things started. So I'd share that. And
So where is that going to go?
well, this is his form, so I assume this is, the way a Google form works is it all goes into a Google sheet and he would get notified. So as of now, I assume Hakon Lee.
So this is his flow, not
That is
ours.
correct.
Got it.
That is correct. That's just something he said, our team, and I don't know who that team is. Our team is currently in the prototype phase of prosthetic hand, and we created a questionnaire. If you could send that out to pay. Now, actually, now reading this a second time, I don't know if he's saying that they're in the prototype phase of a new design they're creating, or like the prototype phase of just making one of our designs. I'm actually not sure what he's referring to there. So, but the questionnaire is the thing.
That's why we have a forum. We can ask them.
That's right. Okay, so those were the posts that we wanted to call out this week. As far as events, let's just go ahead and take a look at that summary. Which tab did I put that in here? Oh, lost it. I'll just go back here.
Yeah.
All right. So Ben, you want to take us through the events we got coming up?
Sure. So today we have the new member meetup. I sent some invites out this morning. Evan Blackman is presenting about ways that new members can participate other than printing devices. And he's been involved in helping to set up some accounting structures for Open Collective. He's been involved working with the NIAP devices and some other sort of background stuff with the Wishbone project. So following this week, next week we have, you scroll down just a little bit.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
Alexander will be sharing his new print in place design of the Phoenix hand. So that's March 25th. So the Friday of next week.
Nice.
So those are the last 2 sessions for this week, and definitely check out last week, or actually this week on Monday, we had a really great chapter leaders meeting with the folks at Makers Asylum in Goa, India. Just a really incredibly inspiring team of people doing a lot of educational programming, very interested in reaching out through their network. They have sort of a pandemic initiative that they started, which really networks different maker spaces all throughout India, and they were interested in sort of plugging into our community and seeing how that network that they have within India, which is really pretty comprehensive, could work its way into the e-NABLE community. So,
speaking of which, and I forgot to put this on the agenda, but Eric Bubar, one of our key volunteers, reached out to me over the last week to share the fact that there are people making 3D printed tourniquets, and it's basically a kit where the main portion is 3D printed, but then it's got some other materials, some Velcro and fasteners, but people can use their 3D printers to make tourniquets for the people in Ukraine. And he was reaching out to see what the chances are of getting together a kit for people that want to devote their 3D printers to helping out with that. So it comes at a difficult time for us, but Alina and I are looking into seeing how quickly we might be able to pull together a materials kit. Whether or not we're able to do that, it might still be a good thing for our e-NABLE community, for those interested in helping. Certainly, in fact, now that I think of it, Ben, I'm going to forward that email to you because it does have the details, the assembly instructions and everything. People can certainly do it on their own, get the materials locally and that sort of thing if they want to help out.
sure.
So I'll send that your way.
Jeremy, I did see some pushback from someone on LinkedIn mentioning 3D printable tourniquets and saying that's not the right thing to do. So
Interesting. Okay.
we should be conscious.
Do you remember why they were saying it's not the right thing to do?
I didn't, frankly, I didn't quite make the connection to an incipient e-NABLE activity, but I will dig it up and we should.
Yeah, I didn't spend much. I didn't spend much time with it. Just having a cursory glance at the page and the assembly instructions, it certainly looked like a fairly well-built and robust design to me. Maybe the person that you're talking about was just kind of thinking in general about a like completely 3D printed device. Who knows? But it's worth looking into for sure. As always, I think we're in one of those situations where it might be something that's better than nothing. So
Absolutely.
worth looking into. So, all right, we covered events. Okay, I can take this one off now, the finish event that has happened.
But I saw a note yesterday that someone who organized the finish event was very inspired by e-NABLE.
Nice.
Masvi and Alexander, I think, were participants.
Yeah,
so
we did put that on our
done.
list. We put that on our list before you joined to get an update from them. So we'll ask them when they're here.
Got it. Thank you.
Discussion topics. Okay, so getting things done. So we've got our list of champion needs, and I've just started, like I showed before, filling those into a spreadsheet, trying to sort of identify the scale of those efforts. I'm going to pass this over to Ben to start to fill in some more information, and we can use that as a recruiting tool. We also have the sort of parallel process of seeking interns. It sounds like there is ongoing progress there. Ben and John have gotten our account cleaned up for the handshake program and have reached out to at least one of those universities over at Marymount. So we talked here last time about some other possible things we could use to motivate interns as far as rewards. We talked about certificates, either our existing badges or maybe like a printable certificate, some kind of educational focus for our positions with references so they can use it, on their resume, that kind of thing. Recognition page, to recognize those that have helped out and taken on these projects. We talked about a stipend, salary, or bounty, in other words, money. Pay what you will model. So we talked about, we will pay up to a certain amount, but leave it to people to decide how much they want to actually request. And open source ecosystem. I don't remember what that one referred to. Do you guys?
I wouldn't be surprised if it has to do with, for example, inviting other open source groups to create something for us. I've been in touch with Just One Giant Lab. They have a whole bunch of hackers for the greater good and open source people. If we had a well-defined task, you might be able to say, hey, hackers, here's something you might find interesting and fun.
Nice. Okay.
I was going to mention. Oh, you first, Andrew.
I was going to say, I think this one got put on the list because I mentioned one of the ways that other like volunteer open source kind of projects get contributors and can recognize them is having a big section at the bottom of like a README in a big repo that has a list of all the people who've contributed with little emojis underneath their profile icon that says like what roles they've taken, like fixing bugs, adding documentation, etc.
Yeah,
You're
well,
right.
so that does sound
that's actually how
similar.
that got there.
Well, it sounds similar to what we're doing with our badging system. Those badges do appear on your profile on the hub and everything, but we're not using it quite in that way, but we do have some of that.
I'm remembering a little bit about the conversation that we had the last time. I think one of the ideas was having at least one badge or a series of badges directly connecting to some of these other open source platforms. So if you potentially, completed, let's say, I don't know, a related project within another open source group, that could be a badge. Like you could sort of have that crossover using our badge platform.
Well, so and when I first saw this, when I saw that on the bullets there of just open source ecosystem, and maybe this wasn't what it was, but what came to mind for me is just the very fact that everything that we do is open source, I think is a draw for some people. They want to help out. They know that whatever that work they produce, it's going to be shared openly with the world. And I think that is appealing to some. And maybe that was part of that discussion. I think that in and of itself can be used to attract people to help us.
I was going to mention in relation to this larger topic, I did get a call for Kevin Dardick had a job interview at Brandeis. John and I did sort of some feedback for him, but his experience with e-NABLE was one of the main things that he had put on his resume that aligned him for a position. I don't know if he was offered the position or not, but it was with sort of federal regulation work and research. So, you know, it's nice to see that our interns are
It is.
making their way, and that the work that they're doing with us is super relevant to their career path. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, at the end of the day, that's going to be a lot more valuable to an intern than whatever we can pay them. It's having that project on their resume and the references.
You know, creating a past where are they now page
Oh, that's a
or
good idea.
collection might be pretty interesting.
Yeah, because that could
There's some
cover
people
not just
who've
for,
moved on to
not just interns. I mean, people like Kyle and I mean, Eric Bubar, people who are still maybe with e-NABLE, but have gone
Silva.
way beyond. Yeah. That's a great idea.
and that would then become a nice thing that they could link to on their resumes also.
Yeah, I like that.
For the
almost like an alumni.
Did you capture that
branch.
somewhere, Ben?
I said a where are they now page. I put that under.
Oh,
I can
okay,
actually-
under the open source ecosystem.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can move it out.
All right, nice. So yeah, we talked about task bounties, and we are kind of experimenting with that. I think that's still sort of a to be seen kind of a thing as far as how that's working and where we go with that. Possible ways of rewarding contributors. Okay, we talked about that. That's just kind of a repeat summary down there. Okay, so anything else? I mean, I think this is all, it's moving forward slowly, as tends to be the case with e-NABLE, but that's okay. Anyone have any other thoughts on this whole topic of getting things done, finding champions, interns, anything along these lines that you want to talk about? Okay, we can just leave it at that for now. That's something we'll come back to as it progresses. Printer donations, the Jessica Hayes post. I think this is the one that you were talking about before, Ben, right? You guys did reach out to some schools, no responses yet, right?
Yeah, and we did hear back directly from the organization or the business that had offered the 10 printers, and I got a really nice email back from them. So they do have, I think, 6 working printers and 4 that need a little bit of work, but will be available soon. Again, located in Northern California. If anybody's watching this and they're in the region and want to connect the dots on picking up these printers for a local chapter, they are there, and we're in the process of coordinating that.
Nice.
Is Evan active in the chat? I can't.
He was a while ago. He probably still is. Yes.
Okay, so you know, I guess that that's open also to Evan if you have any ideas of you know, how to sort of network this stuff. Yeah, right now we just have 3 chapters that we've reached out to in Northern California. We thought about expanding the scope and sending some emails out to folks in LA, but you know, again, it's open for suggestions.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so that brings us up to our outreach and partnerships. John and Ben, you were mentioning the event or the chapter leaders meeting, and that included Makers Asylum. So you want to share a little bit more with us about what came out of that, if anything, and next steps, that sort of thing?
Sure. I can share the link to the video in the chat. John and I, actually, as John mentioned, that directly after that meeting, he met with another team in Goa about the climate change initiative. So there's a lot of little interconnections, I think, within you know, the larger region and within India that John and the team at Makers Asylum have been exploring, I think, through this discussion.
I can say that we met Ritesh, who was their hands-on person there and who is pushing through the submission for chapter membership and working on devices. There's an they have lots of different printers, so there's an opportunity for them to, for example, test the print in place Phoenix on a variety of machines. I think they would get involved with that. And I heard from Vivek yesterday that he met with Vaibhav over Zoom, and he's eager to sort of help develop that relationship. So, as you say, Jeremy, we're getting incremental traction on this, and it's moving forward. I'll say again, there is, I think, an opportunity for someone to spend a semester or so in beautiful seaside Goa in a gorgeous Portuguese home and makerspace. And so that will develop, but the trick, as ever, is going to be to find the person who's got the right combination of expertise and wanderlust.
Something to add to that as well. In the process of Makers Asylum completing the chapter request, they've created a experimental device. And I guess currently the way that our badging system works is that we have recommended devices that chapter submissions are required to complete as part of the process of becoming a chapter. It has to be one of, the Connecticut or the Phoenix. These guys had worked on an experimental device and done a really pretty good job with it. It was a bionic device, I believe. They submitted that, and Bob wasn't sure if that was eligible for chapter status. So John and I sort of went back and forth and both thought that, it shows not only, printing abilities, but also design experience. So I figured I'd open it up to Jeremy and Andrew if you guys thought that an experimental device, which is a badge, would be enough to qualify a chapter for chapter status. Jeremy, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, guys. I definitely think so myself. I mean, I think the intent of this is, not about whether they made one of our standard or recommended designs. It's more about having had the experience and the skill of doing that, and probably going through with an experimental design, if anything, gives you even more experience. And and not to say, not only that, not every chapter is focused on just making devices. There's lots of different ways chapters can contribute. And so I'm perfectly okay having flexibility with that. To me, it's all about just, are they a committed part of the community and contributing? I think that's what matters.
Yeah. So I'm going to put,
agreed.
Okay, great. I'm going to put at the top of the action items, MASB update, the badging process. So it's because it's set up sort of as an automatic.
Well, Ben, I think maybe we should just think about the qualification question. There's experimental and there's experimental. Someone might well do a thing and say this is an experimental device. I don't think it should automatically go through. I think the point of this is to have a judgment pass in which someone like Bob gets to say these guys
that's kind of what I was saying.
A chapter.
I don't know if you're seeing what I'm sharing on screen, John, but this is the page for the chapter badge. And so I think what we should do is modify our language on the evidence requirements to give ourselves a little bit more flexibility. Talk about, having made some kind of a significant contribution to the community, or, this somehow word it in a way that Bob has that judgment call ability.
Okay, and you guys think that, well, I'll take a step back. Currently, if somebody completes the kinetic hand, let's say, they automatically also get the general device badge. And then that general device badge is what's automatically required for becoming a chapter as a prerequisite. I was going to add in the notes for MASB, if he can set it up so if someone does complete the experimental device, that counts as a device, as the general devices that are.
Yeah, that would make it easier.
Right. So John's saying maybe don't connect those dots. I'm thinking, to me, it's clearly an experimental device is a device. And then that would just sort of save a step.
I think there needs to be, listen, I could produce an experimental device which entitles me to an experimental device badge, but which is so experimental that it really says nothing about my ability to make an e-NABLE hand.
That's a fair point.
Here's your saying, John, but
has nothing to say about my suitability as a chapter leader. So I do think an automatic pass-through, if you make an e-NABLE device, is a reasonable qualification. There should be another pass-through that Bob can trigger for chapters that clearly deserve to be chapters, even though they're coming at it from a different point of view. A chapter that's specialized in outreach, for example. Anyway, so that's my point. It's not a matter of just making the experimental device a replacement for a standard device.
Well, I hear what you're saying, John. I guess the feedback or the other side of the coin would be Bob always makes a pass through because he's the one that approves these devices, so he'll have a sense. All of our devices are experimental devices on some level, and some of the devices that we have as e-NABLE devices are more so than others. But I also think that the qualification of requiring a chapter to be able to print is something that I don't know, I've thought about before. I think it's sort of one way of having a team of people work together, but I do hope that in the future we can have teams and groups that don't need that requirement to have that sort of group status. So
that's why I suggested that maybe we just look at rewording that third requirement under evidence, because the first two are okay. We want them to have joined the hub. We want them to have introduced themselves. That third one says that they have to have made a specific kind of design. Maybe we just change that one to basically say you've made some kind of contribution to the e-NABLE community. Tell us what it is, something generic. I don't know.
So you're thinking taking out
what if it just said what about demonstrated ability to make e-NABLE standard designs?
Sure.
A sophisticated experimental device would qualify.
Yeah,
just something more, a little more vague that gives Bob a little more flexibility. At the end of the day, it's really, like I said, about whether they really are a part of the e-NABLE community. They're not looking to just get a badge. They really want to be part of what we're doing and contribute. Then yes, they should qualify.
So what do you guys think about having the experimental badge count as a device, as the other devices do? Is that something that we want to have MASB connect the dots on, or do we want to skip that for now? My vote is connect the dots, but
I have to say I tend to agree with John on that one, Ben, just because there are a lot of different kinds of experimental designs out there that have nothing to do with hands or arms, and might not really say anything about a person's qualification to make those designs that are most of what we do. So I'm a little hesitant to connect it with the, made an e-NABLE design badge.
Okay.
I agree with John also, and I put my formulation into the chat.
All right, why don't I put you down, John, as updating that?
I don't know how to update the wording.
I have to
do that, Ben.
I have to do that. It gets done through the Badger platform, and then it flows through into here.
Okay, but there's some simple language. You can take out the parenthetical, and we can just advise Bob that we trust his judgment, and we've now empowered him to use it.
But you're saying to make a standard e-NABLE device, an experimental device wouldn't be a standard e-NABLE device, so that would be not.
But if the experimental device does demonstrate that you're able to make a standard device, in Bob's judgment, that's fair game.
Okay, so we should say that, or demonstrate ability to make a standard e-NABLE device, or ability to create a device, which is this general device badge that we have.
A device of equivalent complexity.
Done. That should be updated in a matter of 10 minutes or so. I don't remember how often they refresh. Okay, are we good on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else on outreach and partnerships right now? Any other developments outside of the Makers Asylum discussion recently? Okay.
No.
I don't think we have any kind of funding proposals on the table right now, at least not that I'm aware of. Anyone else have anything that we need to talk about or vote on today? Okay. I do hope that we can get into starting to plan something for our 10-year anniversary soon, but I think we're kind of in a waiting mode right now because we were talking about having interns help with this. So I don't want to put this off too long, but I also don't want to go into it prematurely if an intern is going to be responsible for this. So just a reminder, I guess, that we don't want to let that wait too long.
And for the 10-year, it seems like there's a spectrum of, having a month-long dedicated series of events, or having, maybe something that would be more subtle and less, oriented around that anniversary. What do you guys feel like is the middle ground there? What do we want to shoot for?
Well, I like the idea of doing an actual 10-year anniversary. I mean, we had talked about doing it as a sort of a month-long series of events as opposed to a single event, which I'm in favor of. I'm not so much in favor of just kind of dissipating it into something more kind of general and not focusing on a 10-year anniversary, only because I think the power of celebrating a 10-year anniversary is the ability to draw sponsors and funding. And I don't think we'd be able to do that as effectively if we're just kind of doing some, I don't know, little meetings throughout the year or something, whatever that is.
I wonder whether, just a new thought, whether a video compilation, a video that we put together, not that I know who's going to do it, but simply having a 10-year anniversary video that we put out would be a good marker of the event. It could include all of our greatest hits and et cetera. And it might spare us from event planning.
I'll tell you what, it's something I would be open to working on if I can work on it with Ben, because I think Ben would be in a much better position to help gather video footage from different chapters, different volunteers, get interesting footage from all of them. I could maybe help to piece something together then. How does that sound, Ben?
We could try that. Yeah. And also, again, the idea of having an intern, John's idea is a different set of skills, but that could be something that we could also try to rope somebody into. And that would be a really clear project. I mean, a 10-year anniversary video, it still aligns with sort of fundraising, which Jeremy was talking about, and it's sort of getting some media.
We could explore that. I mean, the only reason I mentioned that I'd be open to helping with this one is I'm actually in the process right now. My son is getting ready to go to film school for college, and I'm working with him on a lot of, we're kind of prepping and going through a lot of, filmmaking and cinematography and lighting and this, that, and the other thing. And this would be a good project for him to get some practice in. So I'd be open to using that as an opportunity to do this if we can pull it off, if we can get some good footage together.
Well, that's great. I think Ben and I and you, but you'll do it on your own, but we can brainstorm and all sorts of things we have seen that might be good things to get in there. And then your son will learn the joys of collating media assets.
Exactly. It could be fun. Okay. Yeah, it's a good idea, John. I like that. And then, whatever we do around that is a bonus, if people want to do a get together or presentations or whatever. But I like that idea because I think that same video, if we do it right, could be used as a great fundraising tool to celebrate what we've done and we can do.
We could do a press release around it. We can have a premiere event online.
That's right.
And maybe it would go viral.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's worth pursuing. So let's keep working on getting the interns in. They could definitely be a part of that. There's certainly ways of doing it collaboratively where we could all have a hand in it. So I think interns are still a welcome part of that process. There's a lot to be done. Great. Yeah, nice. Okay. On the infrastructure side, I think there's only one thing I was aware of that I wanted to share, and that was once again a thanks to Masvi, who managed to fix a broken component in the hub. That is the calendar and the way recurring events were working. They now work properly with an upcoming events widget, so we were able to replace the one that we were manually managing, and we now have an automatic list of upcoming events. Including, I notice, an indication of when one gets canceled, which is kind of interesting. What is the device pilots? Is that accurate that got canceled, Ben?
Yep. Yeah, that was something that
So that's actually really nice that because it shows up as a recurring meeting for people that were expecting it, but it shows clearly that that one is canceled. I like that.
It also shows when you're attending. So one of the things I wanted to mention, for example, if you scroll down, if you scroll down and then join a meeting, it says
look at
attending
that.
on the side, which is great. I'd love to get more people using those buttons. I think in the early days of the hub, people were more active with, we'd get an event and it would say 7 or 8 people are joining. If you click on the new meeting, the new member meetup, there are a number of people that said that they're attending.
We're attending, yeah.
But it's really handy, I think, for just getting a sense of who's coming and how to prepare sometimes. So
yeah, and you can see who they are. That's nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
So just
reminder that functionality. Now that the functionality you just demonstrated is not at all obvious unless you've clicked the attend button. So I suggest you take a clip from today's meeting and turn it into a post just saying, you may not be aware, but this is now a useful way of tracking your e-NABLE attendance.
And it might be worth telling people who aren't aware of that also that this little download an ICS file is a useful way of putting it onto your own calendar. You just download that file and then open it, and it will ask you what calendar you want it on, and boom, you've got it on your calendar. So that might be worth sharing too.
Right, great. Also in the comments for each of these videos, if you go to a previous video or previous event, you go to the calendar and go to, let's say, the chapter leader meeting, just the general calendar.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I've been adding as a comment the streaming video. So let's see if you go to, let's try. There we go. So you scroll down, you can see the streaming video, but that's also the documentation. So there is an archive, but the event itself is, I think, just as useful. So
nice.
That's really good, Ben, because often you can look on, you say, I was at some event. You can find the event you went to in your own calendar, and now you can find it on this calendar and review it.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, so hopefully that'll make things a little bit more useful. I think these events are really becoming a core part of how we do things these days. And so anything we can do to make it easier to find and easier to see when they're coming up, that's a great update. I think it should be useful.
Great.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Mezvi.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that was a 1 year. Was it Reddit? I forget.
And forth. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a post that that we made to GitHub, and it lasted, a couple series of other people having the similar challenges, and in the end, they fixed it. Took a year, but there's open source for it.
Well, I don't see anything in the last few topics here that needs to be covered today. So let me just use our remaining time to ask if anyone else here has anything that you'd like to discuss.
I guess I can ask, speaking of events, in terms of April, I can give a little preview of April and see if anybody has ideas for guest speakers. Let me open it up real quick. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Nope, go for it.
Okay. All right, so we've got Skip and John for the Bionics meeting, and hopefully we can pull in other folks that have used the Bionic Ripper, like Eric Bubar.
Right, and Skip is reaching out to James Quilty in Thailand.
Great. For the e-NABLE Education meeting, I did hear back from Jeff Powell that he's available, which is great. So that's 4 chapters that are working together within the state. So it's sort of a micro version of what's happening in France and Turkey and soon to be India.
Ben?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. You have a list of chapters at universities.
Yep.
Do you send them an alert to for example, that specific event?
We have sent emails out in the past. specifically to device pilots, to educational chapters, to chapters. It shifted to the larger mailing list when we started sort of structuring it on benchmark, but we could potentially do both. There might be some redundancy, but
I think, I think an email to university chapter leaders with a little blurb saying, want to make sure you saw this because Jeff Powell has got a very sort of rich playbook for how to have a university chapter up its game, would get their attention in a way that one postage stamp on the montage would not.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And again, most of the chapters are already in the mailing list. So doing it separately just means that there's going to be 2 emails for some folks, but we can do that and see if it bothers anybody.
I
The
predict
master
that
email list has got 10,000 people, so.
Well, that's right. That's right. So many people will have learned how to turn off a mass mailing. But if we can send this if we can target this to particular people, it's sort of like a customized feed. It's more work. It might be something to try to automate eventually, but
we've done it in the past. We could do it again.
Marketing for these are high quality events, but people would benefit from attending them if they paid attention, and maybe we can help them pay attention.
Got it. So in terms of the 2 chapters that we have, or the 2 meetings that we don't have presenters scheduled yet, we've got the chapter leaders meeting. That's John's kettle of fish. So I don't know, John, if you have a sense of a chapter that would be good to reach out to. We're at mid-March, so this is probably a good time for that. New member meetup for next month also.
Here's a fresh thought about the chapter leaders meeting. I noticed at the last chapter leaders meeting that we didn't have our European members, probably because they are distracted by current events. But given the discussion we had about tourniquets and the ongoing situation in Ukraine, it might be sort of interesting just to reach out to European chapter leaders and just say, these are extraordinary times. We'd be interested in seeing how you all are doing and discuss any relevant events. It's sort of it's a way of putting a spotlight on a group of people who are otherwise going to be prioritizing other things. But if they have needs or if they have initiatives, we'd like to know about them anyway.
That's a great idea. Do you want to draft that email? I can come up with a list if you'd like of European chapters.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. And I guess I'll look for European chapters, but also sort of just larger regional chapters. I mean, there's obviously some chapters in the network that are, I mean, Turkey is sort of on the cusp, but they definitely would want to be there. So,
as I think about it, there's going to be a need for 3D printed prosthetics, and there is a need, I'm sure, right now for 3D printed prosthetics as well as tourniquets in the Ukraine. We should really think about that, especially because we have a number of chapters in neighboring countries.
Yeah. So maybe the topic could be preparing for or discussing the current situation in Europe, but it could be open obviously for all chapters to join.
Yeah, that's right. The notion is that European chapters will have insight into the situation that is centering on Ukraine, and that Ukraine probably, okay, we'll work on it. It's a good and timely thing to do.
And maybe thinking about a chapter that could present one specific European chapter that could start things off, so that you at least have one other person.
Absolutely, I would talk to Masvi about this.
Good thought. So maybe if you want to reach out to Masvi and draft an email, I'll get a list of some sort of key chapters.
Right. I'd like Jeremy, if you can forward me a little bit about that tourniquet stuff.
Okay.
that will alert me to go look for the LinkedIn thing. And I'll try to wrap my head around how to package it.
Great.
Sounds
And
good.
by the way, I'm enthusiastic about doing this, Ben, in part because it's weeks away. So that's a good thing too. It gives us a little time to plan it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be flat out for the next 10 days, but after that, it's a good thing to do.
Great. New member meetup.
You know, I will.
Next month. Yes.
There's a parallel. Someone in the Eco Restoration Alliance is trying to organize something around restoration of Ukraine. And it occurs to me that is not necessarily two parallel meetings. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? That is, instead of being two parallel similar activities, maybe there's a joint meeting of people who, you know, volunteers for good, interested in helping repair humans and nature in Ukraine in the current situation.
Maybe we can share the meetings with each other, but it does seem like the focus of the eco restoration is going to be probably a different topic than, you know, 3D printed assistive devices and that kind of stuff.
Probably true, unless they're.
There's no reason why they have to happen at the same time.
No, that's right. They don't have to be joined, but it does occur to me that, I mean, I know that there are hackers who are, pardon me for saying so, open source volunteers these days who are active virtual combatants in this thing right now. And so there are a lot of, you know, internet-based non-organizations that are playing important roles here. It's just something to think about. It's just, so I will think about it. But I'm not going to muck up our particular meeting until I've thought about it.
Well, and it could be connecting the dots even within the event. So it could be something where there's a part A and a part B. One non-organization is hosting one and one non-organization is hosting the other.
I agree. I agree.
So that
All
could work.
Well, I need to wrap up here unless anybody has anything else.
Well, just follow up if anybody has any ideas for new member meetup, something for new members for next month. You can just send me an email. Could be sort of review, it could be a presentation, it could be a skill set. So.
Sounds good. All right, guys, thanks very much. I'll see you all next week. And John, if you would stick around, please.
Okay, I need to take a very brief break, but I'll
No problem.
leave everything as it is.